Hey, what's up? Welcome to day 7, Becoming Smarter. Today's the day. Today's the day of the interview. I think it starts in about an hour at 10 o'clock. And so right now I'm just going to, I'm gonna do some last minute preparation, write down the names of my interviewers so I won't forget them. Cash. Lane. Dominic Cherry. Kyung Do-min. It's in Matthew. Alright. Okay. So I think Fana's in charge of public equities. Public equities. It's cool. We have Dominic Cherry. He's in private equity. Min Nguyen. Maryland State Retirement. Investment associate. That's cool. So, investments. Yeah.
这个卡你拿上吧，骑手。
Okay.
你记住啊。
Okay. Yeah.
我把你这会儿看，这会儿要不要给我能看见这会儿吗？那个能看见背面吗？
可能不会。
不会哈，看不见是吧？
Yeah.
行。
Thank you. Yeah, that sounds pretty crazy. Oh, wow. Okay, and then there is Mitz and Matthew. Fixed income. Governance manager. Andrew C. Palmer. Social governance. That's cool. Okay, so I think we have the people that I'm going to be interviewing, have their names. Okay, Fana, Cash, Fena, Dominique, Kyondo, Min, and Nitsin. Alright. Alright, so maybe you can run through some examples. Brian, can you tell me a little bit about who you are, some things? Tell me about yourself. Well, currently a junior at the University of Maryland studying finance and computer science. Last summer, I was an intern at JP Chase on a software engineering team within the consumer bank. And so over the course of that summer, I worked on a project with a few other interns and full-time software engineers. And together we created a full stack website that would help monitor the configurations for thousands of applications within Chase Bank. In the previous summer, I was an intern at Willis Towers Watson within their pension benefits department. And so over the course of that summer, I worked closely with my team of analysts to build solutions and to gather data for them using SQL, and then also build a report for a data audit on retroactive payments. At school, I've taken some classes in finance, computer science, and a little bit of math. I'm also the treasurer of one of my school's dance teams. And outside of school, outside of work, in my free time, I really enjoy dancing, learning how to dance. I like skateboarding a lot. I like to read, and I'm really into fashion. Can you tell me about a time where you worked in a team and there was a big deadline you had to push? Yeah, so I remember in my last 2 weeks of my JP Morgan internship, there was a deadline we had to meet in order to finish a website and a big presentation we had in front of the chief information officer. So that was a big deal for us and for our team. And we were a bit behind on schedule. So during the last 2 weeks, we really pushed through and came together as a team. What we changed was before, in the previous 8 weeks, we had done a lot of the development process by ourselves and tried to solve some of the problems on our own without really trying to consult each other and play to each other's strengths. But during the last 2 weeks, we really decided to come together as a team to be able to develop and speed up our development process. But at the last 2 weeks, really came together as a team to help each other out, use each other's strengths. For example, some people really good at front end, so anytime we were working on a front end, whenever we were working on a front end component, we would ask for some help. Whenever I was stuck on a front end component, I would ask some help from people who were more comfortable designing components in React. And whenever people were stuck with the backend or with the database, I would try to help out. And we came together, we really pushed through, and we finished our project, was able to present it to the CIO, and he really liked it. Our managers and our managers really liked it, and they ended up using our product, our website, and pushing it to production, which is just a fancy way of saying they ended up using it within the bank itself. So that was really cool to see. Yeah, another story. What I remember last spring, I participated at a hackathon in my school. So we had 36 hours to come up with a project, develop it, and then present it to a panel of judges. And so this was really a intense, fast-paced environment where we were only given a short amount of time, but we had to accomplish a lot of different things. And so my friends and I, we formed a team together, and we were trying to pursue this best financial hack. And the idea we came up was, how do we create a tax calculation software that is leveraging some type of large language model to be able to classify different types of payments and whether or not they're eligible for tax deductions and credits. And so this was a big project and seems pretty complex, so we had to dumb it down a little bit in order for us to meet the 36-hour time frame. And so I was in charge of building the tax calculation engine, and then also being able to train and fine-tune one of the GPT-3 models that we were using as kind of the space model to help us classify. And because we were working in such a big time crunch, my team and I, we really split up the duties. People would take care of the websites and the front end, the back end, being able to connect our website to the calculation engine I wrote, and then being able to connect the calculation engine to the actual model itself. And so we had to create a kind of development framework in order to get this done. And at the end of the 36 hours, we also came up with a really quick presentation, presented it in front of our judges, highlighted some of the capabilities and some of the use cases, and we ended up winning first place. So that was really cool. So I do have a few questions. I was wondering if you guys could tell, I was really wondering, how do you guys find managers? I'm curious if there's a database that you guys have, or I'm curious if you guys have some type of database that stores a lot of information about managers. What are the ways you evaluate investment managers? Okay. What are your outlooks for the next 5, 10, 15 years? Are there any thoughts on what are some of the determinants that would impact each of the markets? What technologies do you guys use? I saw that you guys were looking for people who know some Python, and what technologies are you guys using? Are you guys building? I saw that you guys are looking for people who know some Python. What are some of the projects you guys might be building? And yeah, can you tell me a little bit about the Can you guys tell me a little bit, can you guys give some insights a little bit on how you're forming your internal management team? I saw in one of your investment committee meetings that you're trying to build a kind of passive portfolio that's internally managed and maybe make an active managed portfolio one day. Can you give me, can I hear a little bit about that? Can I hear a little bit about that? Maybe what type of passive portfolio, what type of assets? Well, is there a specific return objective or an index that you're trying to track with the portfolio? Yeah. So, what are some of the skills that you're looking for as an intern? What are some of the skills that you're looking for as an intern? And maybe what are some of the projects that you think? Yeah, what are some of the projects I can work on as an intern? Will I be able to code as an intern and conduct my own research? Also, can I hear a little bit about what you guys do in your role today and what your roles have been like ever since you started? Past performance ratios. Yeah, do you have any big plans, or do you have any outlooks in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years on maybe some of the biggest determinants of where our economy is going? So what are your market views? Yeah, I think over. What are your market views? What do you think is going to happen? So I don't think I could give you, I don't think I could give you a. That's a hard question, and I don't think I could give you a very decisive answer on exactly what's going to happen in the short term, and especially not in the mid to long term. But I do think that there's a few scenarios that could possibly play out, and some of the, I guess you could say, catalysts or determinants that would cause those scenarios to happen. So the first one I think is in the short term, there's two options. There could be a kind of soft landing or a very soft recession, or maybe no recession at all. And I think the biggest catalyst for that is going to be a decline in inflation and therefore a decline in interest rates. So interest rate cuts by the Fed. I think that's what a lot of the Federal Reserve board members are forecasting that's going to happen in 2024. And it seems like a lot of investment managers and people in the financial markets are also predicting is going to happen. The second is that earnings for companies, for corporations, are going to grow in the short term, and also consumer spending is going to stay consistent and possibly grow as well. And I think these two can kind of go hand in hand. Consumer spending will push up corporate earnings, and that will kind of prevent this big recession happening. But I do think that there's a second scenario where there could be a more harder recession in the short term. And the biggest catalyst for that, I would say there's three different catalysts that kind of revolve around the idea of the current debt levels. So the first one is that consumer credit card debt. I believe that's around above 1 trillion now. And that's a record high. It's never been this high. Second is that the personal savings rate is also low compared to long-term averages. I think it's around 4% in the previous month and previous quarter. And the third is just the overall level of consumer and household debt that's at record highs, and also the reinstated payments of student loans. And so I think all three of these are putting pressures on consumers within the US, especially in a higher interest rate environment. There is, I feel like, going to be some pressure possibly in the consumer spending space, which could affect corporate earnings and possibly cause a more stronger recession in the short term. In the short term. Now, the mid to long term is even more ambiguous. I haven't really thought that far, and to be fair, I feel like I haven't really thought that far. I haven't really thought that far, to be honest. But does seem like there's a few things I would kind of keep my eyes on and make sure I can monitor. But I think there's a few things that I'll definitely consider and monitor going forward. First is just geopolitics. What are some of the relationships between different countries? The policies that might affect the economies and trade between different nations. And second, I would say, is the technologies that are being developed in each of these countries. And just as a whole in the world, what are these technologies? What can they do to impact people? And what can they do to impact the economy and production and productivity? $17, okay. Debt is inching higher, around 17. And so I also definitely would consider what the debt levels are relative to GDP, and maybe consider geopolitics, technologies, and also economic health, economic indicators, economic health, economic indicators, things like the rate of inflation, interest rates, also ratios, maybe debt to GDP ratios, and growth rates of the economy. Okay. Yeah, why do you want to work here? What makes you want to work for the Maryland pension system? I was born in Maryland. I was raised in Maryland, and I currently go to the school, and I currently go to University of Maryland, and I love it. I think working with you guys at the Maryland State Retirement and Pension System will allow me to stay in Maryland after I graduate, which I would love. I really hope I can. But even better, the work you guys do helps the lives of teachers, law enforcers, judges, all of these people that have helped protect and educate my life for the past 21 years. And so I think I really resonate with your mission as an organization to help these people have a fulfilling and worthwhile life after retirement. And maybe to touch upon why this role specifically, I really have two goals I want to accomplish this summer. One is to just learn as much as I can about investing, and the second is to hopefully convert an internship into a full-time investment role. And I think I can do that with you guys at the Maryland State Retirement and Pension System. And I think I could do that with an intern. And I think this internship provides exactly the opportunity I'm looking for. You guys manage over 60 billion in assets across five different broad asset categories with thousands, if not millions, of investment managers and individual securities to choose from. And you guys are all very knowledgeable, very skilled at what you guys do. And to me, someone that's just starting out in the beginning of their career, I know I can learn a ton from you guys. Enough that. Okay. Yeah, a book I'm reading right now is is Making It in America. Yeah, a book I've read recently is called Making It in America by Rachel Slade. And it really talks about the trajectory of the US manufacturing industry, how it was once booming in the mid to late 1900s, and then at the turn of the century, 2000s and beyond, due to some economic policies like the North America Free Trade Agreements, and also corporations and also other economies that are opening up for free trade, it's allowed a lot of these corporations within the US to move their manufacturing processes overseas. It kind of talks about how that has impacted some of the US workforce and the dynamics between manufacturers in the US and manufacturers overseas. And it follows the story of manufacturers overseas. And to me, I thought it was really interesting because of one, I didn't realize how powerful economic policy had on different types of industries within the US. And two, that the US manufacturing industry was really, and two, I didn't realize just to the extent of how much of stuff that is sold in the US depends on overseas manufacturing. And that may cause some problems, and that may cause some problems in the future if the US is over reliant on overseas manufacturing. And I'd say the final takeaway is that nowadays it seems like there are some legislative bills, or there's some legislations or acts being passed that are trying to onshore and bring back US manufacturing, like the CHIPS Act, which is interesting to see. I'm interested to see how this plays out and how the American economy and how corporations are going to deal with these new policies and new manufacturing, and whether they actually move manufacturing back to the US. Okay. Yeah, if you could be the CEO of a company, what company would you want? I think I would want to be it would be cool to be the CEO of Patagonia. I think it would be cool to be the CEO of Patagonia. For me, I'm really interested in fashion, and Patagonia, I feel like, is one of the, how should I word it? They're one of the brands that I look up to as a consumer, and I think is really leading the outdoor sustainable push. And I really think is one of the leaders in the push for sustainable fashion industry, which I think is going to be really important in the upcoming, and I think is going to be really important in the next 5, 10, 20 years. And I think as CEO, there's one thing I would want to do, and it's to explore the idea of manufacturing in the US, being able to manufacture where the kind of roots of the corporation started from, and kind of the roots of where the company started from in the US, manufacture in California and Maine, and really build high quality US made products. And I guess also definitely as benefits, I can have as many of those, and as benefit, I can have as many cozy sweaters as I want. And I can have as many cozy sweaters as I want, so that's definitely a plus too. Okay. going to take my mind off things. Take my mind off things, fold some laundry. Ooh, I think that was the notification for the interview. Yep. Gotcha. Ooh, that's fire. Okay. think I remember one time. So one time during my internship at Willis Towers Watson, I was approached one day by one of the managers on a different client team about this data audit on retroactive payments for some annuity and lump sums on one of the pension plans that they were administering. And she approached me because there wasn't anyone that was really familiar with SQL at the time on her team that was available, and so I decided to step up and try to take ownership of this project. And so I decided to step up and take ownership of this project and be able to deliver to her on a timely manner. I only have 2 or 3 days to do it. And so I started as soon as possible to try to meet the deadline, but quickly I came into a kind of roadblock in the sense that the database that I was looking at had no documentation at all. And there were hundreds of tables with millions of rows of data. So there was, and so it was really difficult to find the stuff that I needed to know. But I just decided to power through and go through each of the tables manually and be able to try to connect the dots and build a framework of how these tables are related with each other, and through that I was able to find the relevant data on the payments that I needed. Using the data that I needed, and then gather the data, built the report in Excel, and then gave it to the manager, who then reported it to the client. And I was able to finish everything on time. I had to stay a little bit late during the office. I had to work a little bit overtime, but I was able to stay on task and follow through with my commitment. And I was really proud of myself for that. And I'm proud of myself for that. So I remember during my internship at Willis Towers Watson, there was a manager. During my internship at Willis Towers Watson, there was a manager who approached me one day asking if I could help with a data audit on retroactive payments for one of the pension plans she was administering. She was administering. And so she approached me because I was familiar with SQL and could help out with the data gathering parts, or the data exploration, data wrangling part of the reports. And I decided to take ownership of the project and build the report entirely by myself, and build the report entirely. First getting the data from our database and then building it in Excel and then presenting it to the manager. But as soon as I started, I encountered a roadblock, and the database that had all of the data, it had hundreds of tables with very esoteric names with really esoteric names, and had millions of rows of data that I had to sift through. And so there's no documentation on any of this, so it was really easy to get lost and sucked in. But I tried to push through and was able to connect some of the foreign keys and the primary keys on some of the tables that I was going through, and was able to build a framework of how the database tables interacted with each other, and use that to help me find the relevant payment data that I needed. And so I was able to gather all the data, bring it in Excel, and then build a report in Excel, and then give it to our manager, who ended up giving it to the client. And I was able to complete that on time, and I was very happy. And that was honestly the first time that I really had a project to complete by myself as an intern, and was really happy with the outcome. Okay. So stories last list I was lost in JP Morgan hackathon. Maybe IRS. Calendar. All right. Ooh, it's happening soon. It's happening. I think probably gonna end the stream in. Gonna end the stream in a few minutes, 5 more minutes, and then I'm gonna end it. Two more minutes. Okay. Two more minutes. So let's see. Questions. Manage portfolio. Manager selection. Intern projects. Okay, I think I'm gonna end the stream here. Very excited. Yeah. I'll see you on the other side.